Welcome to another episode of AI 10X brought to you by 10 Leaves. Today we're looking at a high-stakes battlefield that is costing the global economy billions. And yet, somehow, most of us still think of it in terms of, just install an antivirus.
Yeah.
We're diving into the state of cybersecurity, specifically a report titled AI-Enhanced Cybersecurity Autonomous Defenders versus Attackers.
And cybersecurity honestly almost feels like too soft a word for what's happening. We're looking at a really fundamental transition in how digital territory is defended.
And conquered. Right, because the old model was pretty simple. You build a firewall, and you hope it's high enough. If someone gets over, you patch the hole. It was static. It was reactive. But looking at this research, that model is, it's effectively dead. We're moving into an era of what they're calling autonomous warfare.
Autonomous is the key word there. For the last 20 years or so, cyber defense was human-centric. It completely relied on a human analyst staring at a screen, scrolling through logs, just looking for something weird. The problem is the scale of data has just exploded, and the speed of attacks has accelerated to a point where, human cognition physically cannot keep up.
It reminds me of that idea from aerial combat, the OD loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. And whoever can cycle through that loop faster wins.
Exactly. And in the digital world, humans have a very, very slow OD loop. We need coffee, we need sleep, we get decision fatigue. So the mission of this deep dive is really to unpack how AI is stripping that latency, that delay, right out of the equation. We're entering a phase of AI versus AI.
Which sounds incredibly sci-fi, but okay, let's ground this for a second. When the report talks about the evolution of the defender, it's not just talking about better tools for the IT guy, it's talking about replacing the actual vigilant eye. So what is the current state of play here?
So there are three main capabilities transforming the defense side right now. The first is real-time monitoring, but we need to be careful with that term because it's become such a marketing buzzword.
Yeah, everything claims to be real-time these days.
True. But in this context, we aren't talking about a dashboard that refreshes every 5 minutes. We're talking about ingesting massive amounts of telemetry, data network traffic, endpoint behavior, cloud logs at a scale that creates a haystack problem. A human team might see, 10,000 alerts a day? That is just impossible to triage. And that leads to alert fatigue, where the sheer volume of noise means the actual signal gets missed.
Right, you ignore the car alarm because it's been going off for an hour straight.
Precisely. AI solves that haystack problem. It monitors the network flow as it happens, filtering out all the noise and just highlighting the signal. But that leads directly into the second, and I think much more interesting capability, anomaly detection.
This is one of those areas where the tech has really matured. A few years ago, security was all signature-based, right? You tell the computer, this file hash is a virus called WannaCry. If you see the specific hash, block it.
Exactly. That's the library of bad things approach. And it works fine for known threats. But it is totally useless against a zero-day exploit, an attack that has literally never been seen before. If the attacker changes one single line of code, the signature changes, and the firewall just lets it right through.
So how does the AI handle that?
By ignoring what the file is and looking at what the file does. This is behavioral baselining. The AI learns the pattern of life for the entire network. It knows that Bob from accounting accesses the payroll server on Thursdays. It knows the marketing team uploads big video files to the cloud.
So it establishes a normal...
Right. It builds this really complex, multidimensional model of what normal looks like. So if Bob's credentials suddenly start scanning the entire network for open ports at 3 in the morning, even if he's using a legitimate password, the AI flags it. Not because it's a known virus, but because it's behaviorally wrong. It's looking for deviations in lateral movement.
Lateral movement, that's when an attacker gets in one door and then tries to move sideways to find the really valuable data, yeah.
Exactly. And that movement often mimics legitimate admin activity. A human might look at that and say, oh, Bob is just working late. The AI looks at the keystroke timing, the packet size, the destination, and it says, no, this behavior has a 99% probability of being an automated script.
Okay, so we have a super smart surveillance camera that understands intent, not just images. But spotting the burglar is only half the battle, right? If you see the intrusion, but it takes you 30 minutes to respond, the data is often already gone.
And that brings us to the third capability, which is the most controversial, but also the most necessary, autonomous response.
Taking the handcuffs off the AI.
We have to. The metric that really matters here is breakout time. The time it takes for an intruder to move from that first infected machine to the rest of the network. In some modern ransomware attacks, that breakout time is measured in minutes.
Minutes. So by the time the Security Operations Center gets the page, logs in, and verifies the alert.
The encryption has already started. The game is over. The report emphasizes that autonomous systems are often faster than human teams, but that's a polite way of putting it. It's the difference between a sprinter and a Formula One car.
So what does an autonomous response actually look like?
It's surgical. The AI detects the anomaly on Bob's laptop. Instantly, without asking for permission, it isolates that laptop from the network. It kills the specific process running the script. It revokes the user token. It creates a digital quarantine cell around the threat in milliseconds.
That sounds incredibly efficient, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. We've all dealt with computers making mistakes. If the AI gets it wrong, a false positive, and it shuts down the CEO's laptop during an earnings call, or locks down a server during Black Friday, that's a disaster in its own right.
It is. And that is the tension every CISO, every head of security faces. Do you risk a false positive that disrupts the business, or do you risk a false negative that destroys the business? The industry is moving toward autonomy because the cost of the false negative, the ransomware attack, has become existential. Companies go bankrupt from these attacks, so they are willing to tolerate the occasional automated overreaction.
So the logic is better to apologize for a disconnected server than to explain a leaked database.
That's it, exactly. It shifts the entire defense from reactive remediation to proactive containment.
Okay, so the defenders are suiting up with Iron Man armor. We've got real-time behavioral analysis, instant autonomous reflexes. If I'm a hacker, I'm thinking about retirement, right?
If only. You know the history of warfare.
Yeah.
Every shield just begets a sharper sword.
The counter move.
And the report pivots heavily here. It asks, if defenders have AI, what about the attackers? And the answer is terrifyingly simple. The attackers are using the exact same technology to supercharge their offenses. This is that AI versus AI dynamic.
The dark side of the equation. I think people generally get that hackers are smart, but I don't think the average person realizes how industrialized cybercrime has become.
It's a service industry now. You have ransomware as a service,
Uh-huh.
and AI is the force multiplier. The report describes this as autonomous attackers and defenders evolving continuously.
Okay, so let's break down autonomous attacker. What does that look like? Is it just a bot trying passwords faster?
That's the brute force method, and yes, AI does that better. But the real danger is sophistication at scale. Take social engineering phishing.
The classic Prince from Nigeria email.
Right. And those used to be easy to spot because they were full of typos, they were generic. But now, attackers are using large language models' generative AI to ingest a target's public data. LinkedIn profiles, tweets, company blogs. They generate these highly personalized, context-aware emails that sound exactly like your boss or your vendor.
So it's capable of spear phishing, these really targeted attacks, but at a massive automated scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Millions of unique, persuasive emails sent out simultaneously. No human needs to write them. And on the technical side, they're using AI for vulnerability discovery.
Finding the holes in the wall.
Humans use something called fuzzing, basically, throwing random data at software to see if it crashes. AI uses smart fuzzing. It analyzes the code structure and predicts where the weak points are likely to be. It can scan an organization's perimeter and find a zero-day vulnerability faster than the developers can find it themselves.
That's just unnerving. It's like having a burglar who can look at a blueprint of your house and instantly know which window has a loose latch.
And then, once they are inside, they use AI to blend in. Remember we talked about behavioral baselining?
Yeah, the AI defender learning what normal looks like.
Well, the AI attacker can analyze that baseline too. It can learn to throttle its own traffic to stay just below the threshold of detection. It mimics the noise of the network. It's a concept called living off the land, but automated.
So we have a shapeshifter fighting a surveillance system.
And this leads to the concept of continuous evolution. In biology, this is the Red Queen hypothesis. You have to run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place.
The report uses that phrase, evolving continuously. It implies a loop.
It is a loop. Think of it like a generative adversarial network, a GAN. In AI research, you pit two neural networks against each other. One creates a fake image, the other one tries to spot the fake, and they just iterate millions of times until the fake is perfect.
But in this case, the fake is a cyber attack.
Correct. We're seeing the early stages of malware that can literally rewrite its own polymorphic code in real time to avoid being detected. The defender AI updates its model to catch the new strain, so the attacker AI just mutates the code again.
It's not a static war anymore, it's fluid.
It's closer to high-frequency trading algorithms battling on the stock market than it is to a chess match. It's microsecond decisions based on patterns that are invisible to the human eye, where a single algorithm change can crash or save the entire system.
That analogy of high-frequency trading really lands for me. Because in that world, things can spiral out of control fast. We've seen flash crashes where algorithms interact in unpredictable ways and wipe out billions of dollars in seconds.
That is a very real risk here, escalation. If you have an autonomous defender fighting an autonomous attacker, and they both start ramping up their aggression, you could theoretically see a denial of service condition that neither side even intended. Or even worse, data poisoning.
Data poisoning. That sounds catastrophic.
It is. It's a strategy where the attacker doesn't try to break the system. They try to teach it the wrong lesson. They feed the defensive AI bad data during its learning phase, so it actually learns to ignore the attack. They manipulate the baseline.
That's insidious. It's like gaslighting the AI.
It is. And it brings us to the ultimate question. In a world where machines are fighting machines at light speed and where the data itself might be compromised, how do we survive? What is the strategy?
The report outlines what you called a trinity of defense, 3 pillars to stay safe.
Yes, and they are absolutely critical because relying on just one of them is a recipe for failure. The first is adaptive systems.
Which
It
means
means we have to abandon the idea of set it and forget it. Your security architecture has to be fluid. It needs to be able to reconfigure itself on the fly. If an attack vector changes, the defense mechanisms, the firewalls, the access controls need to adapt automatically.
so the castle walls need to be able to move.
Exactly. And this ties directly into the second pillar, constant learning. The system must be a learning engine. Every failed attack, every successful breach, every anomaly, that data has to be instantly integrated back into the threat model.
So the immune system gets stronger with every exposure.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
But here's the paradox. We've spent the last 10 minutes talking about how humans are too slow, how we're the bottleneck, how AI needs to be autonomous.
Right.
And yet the third pillar, and the report is very, very specific about this, is strong human oversight.
I found that fascinating. It feels contradictory. If the car drives itself better than I do, why do I need to keep my hands on the wheel?
Because the car doesn't know where you want to go. It just knows how to drive.
Intent again?
It's about human on the loop, not human in the loop. In the loop means the human has to click approve for every single action. That's too slow. On the loop means the human sets the parameters, the ethics, and the business logic.
Can you give me a concrete example of where this distinction really matters?
Sure. Let's look at a hospital. An autonomous AI detects a worm moving through the network. The most efficient tactical move to stop that worm is to shut down the entire network immediately. Air gap everything.
From a purely security standpoint, that's the correct move. 100% effective.
Right. But if you shut down the network, you shut down the MRI machines, the patient monitoring systems, the access to digital health records during a surgery, you might kill patients.
Wow. Okay, so the AI sees security threat, but the human sees patient safety.
Exactly. The AI lacks contextual judgment. It optimizes for one variable, security. A human has to optimize for complex competing variables, security, safety, profit, reputation, uptime. Strong human oversight is about defining the rules of engagement. It's telling the AI you can autonomously shut down the guest Wi-Fi, but you are never allowed to autonomously shut down the life support VLAN.
So the human role shifts from being an operator to being a governor. We become the moral and strategic compass for the machine.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And we're also the accountability layer. If an autonomous system destroys a legitimate database, you can't fire the algorithm. A human has to be responsible for the configuration of that system.
It's a comforting thought, in a way, that no matter how fast the math gets, you still need that biological nuance to make the hard calls.
For now, yes.
For now. That sounds a little ominous.
We have to look at the trajectory.
This brings us to the so what for everyone listening. We've covered the shift from reactive to autonomous. We've covered the arms race. We've covered the need for this hybrid human-machine defense. But looking at the report, there is this lingering question about the future.
The black box problem.
Right. As these systems use constant learning and continuous evolution, they're becoming incredibly complex.
Deep learning models are already notoriously difficult to interpret. We know that input A leads to output B, but the millions of layers of logic in between are they're opaque. We don't always know why the AI made a certain decision.
So if we fast forward 5 years, we could have autonomous defenders fighting autonomous attackers using a logic that humans might not even be able to fully deconstruct.
That is the risk. We could reach a point where the speed and complexity of the cyber conflict exceed our ability to even audit it. We might be protected by systems we don't fully understand, fighting enemies we can't see, in a war that happens in nanoseconds.
It puts a lot of pressure on that strong human oversight pillar. It suggests that the most important skill for the future security professional isn't just coding, it's ethics, it's strategy, and it's the ability to manage these, alien intelligences we've created.
Absolutely. The future isn't about the human doing the work. It's about the human asking the right questions of the machine.
And realizing that just because we can automate a response doesn't always mean we should.
That is the lesson. Efficiency is not the only metric. Resilience is. And resilience requires human adaptability.
It's a brave new world out there. The battlefield is invisible, the soldiers are code, and the stakes are our digital lives. But at least now we know the rules of engagement.
Knowledge is the first line of defense.
On that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. It's a lot to process, but the takeaway is clear. Security is no longer a gate, it's an immune system. And we need to keep it healthy. This was AI 10X presented by 10 Leaves. Thanks for listening.